And welcome back, Nats fans, to a special edition of the DoDcast postgame show. I'm your host, co-editor Ricky Keeler, as the Washington Nationals get on the board in this four-game series with the Chicago Cubs, the defending World Series champions, with a 6-1 win. And joining me tonight on our special episode is one of the site experts at the Cubs fan site Cubbies Crib. And just like our previous two guest spots, the team we've had on lost, but we keep appreciating how these guests come on even when their team loses. But our guest here is a good friend of, if you follow what I've been doing, he did my intros for Yanks Go Yard when I had that show. So he's back, and we actually get to see him this time. It's Jacob Misener from Cubbies Crib. Jacob, how are you tonight, my friend?
Well, I'd be doing better with a win, but series split through the first two, so I'll take what I can get right now.
Yeah, and looking at this game, after what happened last night and the way the Nationals almost came back, and you got the sense it could be one of those losses where it affects them for a while. I think they needed tonight more than the Cubs needed tonight because Max Scherzer was pitching. But before we dive into the specifics, your overall takeaways from tonight's ball game.
I mean, it just comes down to the same issues that have plagued the Cubs all year. They ended the night with 2 hits and 1 walk, and they played shoddy defense. Arrieta did not pitch well. Granted, he didn't get a couple calls that I felt he probably should have gotten, but that's not what decided this game. The offense didn't produce. Arrieta didn't pitch deep. After using 7 relievers last night, you had to go to the pen again. It's the same stuff that keeps costing this team games.
Yeah, the home plate umpire, for some reason tonight, wanted you to take a halfway walk to first base before calling strike 3. I don't, for both teams, it was kind of strange. But we want to get you involved as well. So if you want to talk Nats fans or Cubs fans, get in the chat room here on the YouTube page or tweet me at District on Deck, at Rickinator555. Seth Ross is here, says good win. Why do we bring on a Cubs fan? Well, Seth, for the big matchups, we like to have the opposing team on to get their perspective on what went on during the game, because we like to get 2 sides of the story. So that's why we do this, and we usually do it for any big series that the Nationals have throughout the season. Seth's pretty new to the show. Basically, I think you look at this game, and the Cubs got on the board early against Max Scherzer, who finally had his 10-plus strikeout streak snapped. But you've got the sense, especially that first inning, Jacob, if the Cubs could have got a couple more on the board, and it turned out once Scherzer got Montero to pop outs in the first inning, he got settled back in that groove again, even though he had a little bit of issues commanding the inside part of the plate tonight against the left-handers, as John Smoltz pointed out.
Yeah, it seemed like his fastball kept cutting in way off the plate. Cubs didn't capitalize, and as soon as the challenge play at first was upheld and the Nats took a 2-1 lead, Scherzer has been good enough over the last couple of years that even as a fan of the reigning world champs, I know how our offense has been. As soon as that run scores, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this game's over, because Scherzer doesn't get rattled. He settles in. If you don't get him right off the bat, he settles in, and he's, in my opinion, he's right up there with Kershaw for the best pitcher in baseball.
Scherzer tonight, 6 innings, 1 run, 2 hits, 6 strikeouts, didn't walk anybody, 93 pitches, 62 strikes, and after the Bryant triple, as Jacob said, he settled in, did a really nice job, and I think Dusty made the right call. Take him after 6 innings. You're up 5 runs. Scherzer's thrown 118 pitches against the Mets, 121 pitches against the Marlins. At some point, you've got to give him a break or get as close to a break as you can. And I think he had to let the bullpen finish this out, regardless of how it ended. If it ended poorly, you live with it. You got to look for Max Scherzer's health first and foremost. But the big story, I think, nationally from this game is going to be what's wrong with Jake Arrieta, who had an absolutely rough night, 4 innings, 5 runs, 6 hits, 6 walks, 4 strikeouts on 98 pitches, just 52 strikes, a lot of 4-pitch walks even in this game. And I'm sure a lot of people in Chicago, Jacob, are wondering what the heck is wrong with Jake Arrieta. What are you seeing, and is the concerns now turning into panic with this guy?
Yeah, it's past, a World Series hangover, both with Jake and with the team as a whole. We're knocking on the All-Star break. Arrieta has not pitched well. Apart from the postseason, even if you look back at the second half of last year, he was not the same pitcher he was in 2015 and right out of the gates in 2016. There was a noticeable downturn. This year, we've seen a velocity decrease. There's less separation on his pitches. But the big thing, and you mentioned it, it's just control. He is not hitting the zone. He's not painting the corners. In 2015, he could put the ball anywhere he wanted. It didn't matter whether it was his fastball or his secondary pitches. He had absolute control over everything. He hasn't had it. He's either missed out of the zone or missed so badly in the zone that hitters have made him pay, and now he's got an earned run average that's starting to knock on 5 again. And, I mean, to be blunt, without a healthy Arrieta who is contributing, I'm not even asking for Cy Young Arrieta. I'm asking for a solid number 3 starter. Call it a 500 record and a mid-3 ERA. The Cubs are in trouble. You cannot just rely on John Lester. Kyle Hendricks is out. Arrieta's not pitching well. Your second best starter right now, outside of Lester, is probably Mike Montgomery.
Exactly. That's a scary thing to think about, especially you could talk about the workload all you want. I know Chapman did the same thing after the World Series last year, but that's the price you pay to get the title. I mean, that's what you have to do. And Arrieta got to know that going into a contract year. You understand it, but at the same time, you want him to just go out there and pitch. You hate to say don't talk about it, but at some point he's got to figure out what's working for him. And I don't know if tonight, Jacob, he was affected more by the run game. This is a guy who was 8 for 9. Giving up stolen bases, so teams weren't really running on him as much. And I don't know if the Nats had something on Miguel Montero, but it was just freewheel on the bases, and Montero half the time wouldn't even throw it.
Yeah, and I don't even know if the base stealing is as much a reflection on Arrieta as it is Montero. I mean, you and I talked about it before we went live. Montero's thrown out, heading into tonight, 1 runner all year. 24 for 25. That's insane. That is not sustainable, even if you're a backup catcher. You cannot allow the running game to proceed like that. I mean, honestly, I think at this point it's worth taking a look at the personal catcher situation, maybe trying Contreras with Arrieta. I know part of it is this rotation's designed to give him a blow here and there, but you can't let a team like Washington that has so much athleticism and speed, you can't line them up against Montero. And kudos to Washington. They knew what they had to do. They had a game plan, and they went out and executed it.
7 stolen bases, which is a Nats team record and ties an Expos record. And Trey Turner, 4 stolen bases, ties his own record. Second time he's done that this season. Stole second and third to start the first inning and then scored on a Brian Goodwin groundout. So while the Nationals didn't hit the ball out of the park, they did an excellent job with moving the ball around, taking what the Cubs gave them. And I think the big play that everyone's going to talk about in this game is the third inning. First and third, Daniel Murphy hits a ground ball. Looks like a routine play for Tommy La Stella in the shift. And for some reason, La Stella, even with a lot of time, pulls Rizzo off the bag. It takes the umps like 7 minutes to review it, but eventually they get it right. And the Cubs, who played excellent defense last night, particularly Javi Baez, it seemed like the defense, Jacob, which turned a corner for them, let them down at least at that point in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the most frustrating things for Cubs fans this year is last year the defense was historically good. It was statistically, by multiple measures, one of the best defenses ever in baseball. This year, they've come back to earth. The infield right now is really banged up. I mean, in an ideal world, you've got Addison Russell playing short and hobbies over at second. And, I mean, after last night especially, you would think that ball that La Stella booted, that's a sure thing for somebody like Baez or even Zobrist. But without Russell, without Zobrist, everyone's kind of shifted around. Hayward's still out. The team's just piecing it together on a daily basis. But that's a play you have to make. There's no way around it. You have to make that play. After that, it just really seemed to come undone. I know Arrieta threw over 25 pitches in 3 of his 4 innings. I mean, that's just not a recipe for success.
Judo Joker's here, and he comments, any analyst who says base stealing is not worth it, they should consider it tonight. And that's what the Nationals, they have to win that way. I mean, that's what helped them win last year. You felt some of that was missing, at least in the early portion of the season with Trey Turner out, and that's a difference he makes to a ball club. I mean, you look at Anthony Rendon even getting a steal tonight. Michael Taylor had 2, and it's great when he's running as well. That can completely throw off a pitcher, and you even saw, even when Bryce Harper was fouling pitches off and making it Arrieta work, you kind of thought Arrieta had Harper in the back of his mind, but had Turner in the back of his mind, and that can play with a pitcher as well. So the Nats, I think, were smart mentally in getting that approach and getting themselves on base that way. If the home runs aren't coming, got to win another way. Looking at the Cubs, we're going to look at the Cubs mainly, guys, for a little bit, and then we'll dive more into the national stuff. So we have Jacob here. I want to talk about a couple of things. Mainly the Cubs now at 39 and 38. Now, there's still only one game back because Milwaukee lost to Cincinnati tonight, but you mentioned a little bit a few minutes ago. Is it still a hangover, or are fans starting to be really concerned, even though they're still within striking distance, of how this team has gotten off to a really slow start this year?
I think there are a couple different sects of Cubs fans. The longtime, knowledgeable baseball fan looks at the standings, understands this isn't where the Cubs expected to be. But like you said, they're within a game of first. They could go on a run like they did in 2015, blow everyone away in the Central. Then you've got the people who really got on the Cubs bandwagon in the last 2 years. And my goodness, that is a train wreck to watch. They are in full-blown panic mode, questioning Joe Madden, saying that they need to sell. I mean, just the most ridiculous things you've ever heard. But if you're asking me, I say it's a legitimate concern on how the Cubs are playing. Is it panic time? No, we're not even to the All-Star break. All it takes is a solid second half to run away with a very, very weak National League Central. But on the other hand, they definitely don't look like the world beaters that they did last year. So even if they win the Central, you really have some serious questions about how deep this team could go in a postseason.
So some of the fans view it as Milwaukee. We don't know what they're going to do at the deadline, but they're a team that Cubs fans. I don't know how many times that the Cubs have played them this year, but they view Milwaukee as a legitimate threat to win this division.
I'm not sold on them. I don't know many people that are. Right now, to me, they're still a feel-good story, kind of like Colorado. It's like looking at the NL West. Colorado's a great story. They've played really well, but if I'm putting money down on the NL West right now, I'm putting it on the Dodgers. They've got the experience on paper. They're the better team. The Rockies have been riding their young arms like crazy in the first half. I think they'll fade. I would like to think the same thing about Milwaukee. I think Joe Madden's one of the best managers in baseball, and I think on paper the Cubs just have too much talent to be a 500 team. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying I don't think it's likely.
The big player concern, at least for the Cubs, is around Kyle Schwarber, who is now out in AAA Iowa. Did you like that move that the Cubs made, and what's the concern level around Schwarber right now?
No, I mean, it was overdue. I would have sent him down earlier than the Cubs did. He just hasn't been the same player. And I think on a national level, especially, people really overlook the fact that this is Kyle Schwarber's first full professional season. He was called up late in the year, mid-season in 2015. He missed all of last year because he blew out his knee and had knee surgery before coming back in the World Series. This is his first full season. He's still a rookie. And I think you saw pitchers study him from last year and the year before, make adjustments, and he wasn't able to adjust on the fly. I'm not worried about it. I think he's still a huge piece in the Cubs puzzle moving forward. And I think he just needed to go right and get his head right. I'm not worried about it at all. I think Iowa will be good for him. And if he comes back and does what he did in the postseason the last 2 years, for the Cubs, that's like making a major trade deadline acquisition, and it costs you nothing.
And the Cubs have a lot of depth in the outfield to begin with. When you look at John Jay, Albert Almora, Hayward, of course, being on the DL hurts them, but they even get more athletic in the outfield with those two guys. The only problem in the outfield right now is Chris Bryant playing right field at times, but even then, Bryant's played the outfield before, so at least makes them a different-looking team, but get Schwarber right, I think, is the most important thing to keep in mind. Now, you look at the trade deadline, and when I'm watching Costas and Smoltz tonight, because I'm in New York, I don't watch Masson, so if Bob and FP said something cool tonight, feel free to throw that in the chat room. But the Nats, everybody talks bullpen. The Cubs, it seems like you mentioned, with all their injuries, and Arrieta struggles, they might be looking at the rotation. They've got some good young players, one playing third base tonight, Heimer Candelario. Who are the arms the Cubs should be looking at, and do you think that they will get a starter between now and July 31st?
I think if they don't get an arm before the deadline, they have no shot at repeating as World Series champions. The rotation has been spotty at best. And that's kind of what they rode last year in the postseason. They rode Hendricks, Lester, Arrieta. I mean, those are the guys that got them a World Series. And Theo said before tonight's game that they don't plan on going after rental players. And in my opinion, they shouldn't. They're going to go after long-term controllable arms, which obviously is going to come at a steep cost. So it would not surprise me at all to see somebody like Candelario or Ian Happ or Eloy Jimenez. I mean, that would be for a top-tier arm, but if you're going to take a quality young arm, I mean, prices are at a premium right now.
So last question, at least for you, Jacob, when you look at the importance of the rest of the series, the Cubs, I thought, got a huge win last night because you're looking at facing Scherzer and Strasburg the next couple of days. You've got to get that win, and they didn't perform great against Gio, but got it done. So what are you looking for these next two games? Because Thursday looks winnable for the Cubs with Lester against Ross, and a good matchup tomorrow with Lackey and Strasburg from the Nats side. So what's your expectation for these next two games?
I think the series is going to end the same way the Cubs series in Miami did. They're going to split the 4-game set. I actually have it flip-flopped, actually. I actually have the Cubs winning tomorrow and then dropping the finale. John Lackey was better in his last start. Not the season you want from him, but I think he's going to step up and deliver. He knows where the team's at right now. But, I mean, right now Washington's the team to beat. It's a good measuring stick. The Cubs aren't where they need to be. And even though they won last night, you saw that in the ninth. They didn't have that steely mentality that they had last year. In 2016, if they had their foot on your throat late, they were going to step on it and finish it. This year, they let you get one hit. It snowballs. That game easily could have went Washington's way last night. The Cubs could be down 2-0 in this series.
Well, the way I look at that is we mentioned starting pitching as a weakness, but they don't really have anybody behind Wade Davis that is trustworthy. I would say Carl Edwards Jr. maybe is that guy, but Strop can be a little bit wild. Hector Rondon, I don't know what they see in him, but he's not a guy I would trust for late outs. And, I mean, that could really be a weakness because the Cubs, I'm sure, didn't want to go to Davis last night, especially after pitching so much in the week prior.
Right. And, I would be shocked if Hector Rondon lasts the whole season in Chicago, to be honest. But I really think that Carl Edwards Jr. is overlooked. He's averaging just under 13 strikeouts per 9 right now. He's got a 1.72 ERA, 33 appearances. He's been dynamite. And I expect that Davis will walk and sign a great free agent deal at the end of the year. And I think Carl Edwards Jr. will be the closer in 2018. But like you said, there is a lot of question marks. The team just needs to get their head on right and get back to doing the little things.
Looking at one more thing from my Nats perspective, and I think Joe Madden over the last year has done an excellent job pitching to Bryce Harper. Now, he hasn't walked them like last year, but he's thrown everything outside. It doesn't seem like Harper is catching up to it very much outside of a couple of blue pits that he's had. And the Cubs are in Ryan Zimmerman's head. It's plain and simple. Even he hits a ball to the track tonight, can't get out of the park. So at least if this is the matchup, because you look at the West, if the West is battling it out in the NLDS, and let's say these two teams play in the NLDS, if it gets to that point, the Nats are going to need Ryan Zimmerman to step up, because if he doesn't, then you got Dusty stacking up the lefties, and that's going to help the Cubs out even more with putting Murphy behind Harper. But Ryan Zimmerman has to step up, and the Cubs have done a nice job keeping him in track, because he's probably an MVP candidate, if not the front runner right now.
Yeah, they've been really, really effective. I was actually at the game last year where they walked Harper. I don't even remember how many times. And he just never seemed to get his rhythm after that. And Zimmerman was my big concern going into this series because, like you said, he's the MVP frontrunner right now. He's had a great year. And he just has not been able to solve the Cubs. I don't know why, but I think once he gets one to fall, it's just going to be opening the floodgates. So the Cubs better hope that over I think it's 7 total regular season games they have Washington this year, they can keep Zimmerman at bay, because if you throw a lineup out there with a hot Harper followed by Zimmerman, Murphy, Rendon, I mean, that's a loaded lineup, and then surround it with the athleticism of all these other guys like Turner and Taylor. I mean, it's a very balanced lineup.
All right, Jake, before we let you go, tell listeners out there how they can follow Cubbies Crib on Twitter, what you guys are working on over there, and any cool articles you want to plug.
Yeah, right now we're onboarding some new talent, trying to mix up kind of the takes we have. I'm trying to keep younger writers from jumping off the proverbial cliff with the Cubs at 500 heading into July. But we've got a lot of good stuff. We've got a good team over there. We're on Twitter quite a bit, on Facebook too, at Cubbies Crib for both. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting time to be a Cubs fan. Obviously, last year, win a World Series. Cubs fans don't know what to do with themselves now that they have a World Series. They don't know if they should be satisfied with that or if they should be furious that the team's 500 again. So it's always interesting to follow Cubs fans.
Absolutely. Go to Cubbies Crib, best place to get your Cubs information here at the Fanside Network. It's always a pleasure to read the work that those guys do. Jacob, again, thanks for hopping on. Keep up the great work, and I'm sure we'll have you on when the Nats go to Wrigley in August, and who knows, maybe the Cubs might get a win and you'll hop on here and be the happy one on this podcast. But thanks for hopping on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ricky.
So that's Jacob Misener from Cubbies Crib. And again, we like to do this for every big series there are. So I think the Nats next month have Milwaukee and Colorado. So if for one of those series, we'll have somebody on, and we love to get the perspective. But let's get back in the Nationals. I know you guys have been waiting to do that. And Judo gave me what FP talked about tonight, and that's Max's competitiveness. He loves games like this where he struggles but gets gritty wins just as much as the 20 strikeouts and the no-hitters. And I think that's a great point because Scherzer obviously did not have his best stuff, at least early in this game. But he found a way to what works. I thought his slider was pretty good. That especially, I loved when he threw the slider to Bryant that tailed away during the middle portion of this game. And sometimes you need starts like that, especially when you can get 2 hits at the plate, like Max Scherzer seems to do almost every night, practically, at least 1 hit. He seems to do different things each time that make him so exciting to watch. He doesn't have to strike out 20 every game. He doesn't have to have 10 strikeouts every game. He has 6 strikeouts in every game this year. Even that is impressive in itself. Even though the game has sort of translated to more strikeouts, I've been very impressed with what he's done. And again, to end the outing with 10 straight, 16 out of 17 against that lineup, even though Zobrist is on the DL, Hayward's in the DL, Schwarber's in AAA, that's still a really good lineup you're going after, especially with Rizzo hitting leadoff. Joe Madden does crazy things with leadoff hitters, but it just works for some reason. But for Max Scherzer to do that, I was very impressed with this game. Drew chimes in. Interesting to see Romero, Treinen, and Albers all pitch in a 5-run game. That's another interesting point because Matt Albers pitched last night, and then pitched 2/3 innings today on 10 pitches. So you wonder if Albers will be available tomorrow. You wonder if any Romero will even be available tomorrow. 13 pitches, 7 strikes for him, just 18 pitches in 2 days, but you worry about that. Blake Treinen's thrown 2 days in a row. Oliver Perez threw 7 pitches, but who are you looking for now to close games tomorrow? Are you going to go to Jacob Turner? Are you going to go to Joe Blanton? And that's the concern you have, that without having a guy that you can rely on for that role. Cole Glover hasn't even started throwing yet. So you still don't know who your closer is, and you're throwing closers in a 6-1 game. But honestly, I would have said here, Ennie gets the 7th, and Jacob Turner gets the 8th or 9th unless we need him. Unless we need a Albers to come in. You didn't need Matt Albers to come in there. Albert Perez should have been allowed to finish that inning. And I never liked that they deviate from lefty-lefty. Like, okay, Ollie got Rizzo, so let's see if Perez get the next 2 guys out. He's capable of that. And now who knows, Matt Grace obviously was used yesterday. That plays a factor. But Dusty's got to trust more than one guy. You get the sense he's trusting Romero, he's trusting Treinen, he's trusting Albers a little. I think the trust on Albers may be waning a little bit, but Romero and Treinen have been the 2 big guys he's gone to. I'm a little bit concerned the rest of the series with that. I think that's a huge point. And Seth even mentioned that Ryan Zimmerman had a near grand slam. It wasn't really near grand slam. I knew he had the ground out with base loaded. He did have the near home. He crushed the ball to right, but Bryant was playing it well on the track. And I think he's got to find a way, like Jacob even said, if you get that big hit, that's going to change his confidence level. Because I don't think it's affecting him entirely, but it's got to be in the back of his mind that he's 4 for his last 40 against the Cubs. It has to be. Because Madden hasn't exactly intentionally walked Harper in this series. I'm surprised they haven't done that, to be honest. Maybe it's something different that the Cubs are doing this year. But at some point, if Zim doesn't get a hit the next couple of days, you wonder if that gets Daniel Murphy in the cleanup spot for that particular series in August, even though Dusty doesn't like to sort of make regular season series different in terms of importance. But this is a big one for the Nats. If they can get 2 at home, I think you have to feel confident with it because you held serve. You don't want to lose 3 out of 4 in this series, and that's what made tonight's game very important. Looking at a couple other things on what the Nationals did tonight, again, while Drew brought up the usage of the bullpen, I thought the bullpen was really good. Romero did walk a batter, but got a double play on John Jay for the second straight night. Blake Trinan threw a perfect 8th on 13 pitches. His movement on his pitches looked really good. So I liked what those guys did. The Nats did go 5 for 15 with men scoring. Could have broke the game open earlier, but Felix Pena for the Cubs did a nice job. And in long relief, 2 hits over 3 innings, was the only guy not used last night. But the other guy I want to talk about, Daniel Murphy, 11-game hit streak as well, is Michael Taylor. 2 more hits tonight, a 2-run double in the 5th inning to make it 6-1. And Eddie Matz of ESPN had an excellent stat. I want to pull that up for you guys. If you were following along with me on Twitter, you would have saw the stat, but I'll read it to the people who weren't on Twitter. Since April 29th, Michael Taylor has 29 extra base hits. There are only 2 players in all of baseball that have had more extra base hits in that time period. That's the most likely the National League Rookie of the Year in Cody Bellinger and Nolan Arenado. That's where Michael Taylor is right now, and he's the 8th hitter in this lineup. His approach of the plate has changed. He's not chasing many bad pitches. He worked the count, I think, to 3-2 before he got that 2-run double. He can hit the first pitch as well as anybody. We talked about it last night. His first pitch average is over 400 going into last night. So he has done a nice job adjusting, taking advantage of his third opportunity that he's had, and he's running with it. And that has been very impressive to watch. While Matt Wieters has sort of struggled a little bit, Taylor's been picking up the slack for the guys, and I think that's important. Only took 13 pitches tonight, but the top of the order took all the pitches. Turner had 21 in 5 at-bats. Goodwin had 24 in 5 at-bats with a couple of walks, and Harper saw 26 pitches in 5 at-bats. A really impressive number. Judo Joker chimes in, says, Blake Trinan's movement looks like a video game cheat code. Him and Glover, the movement on their stuff is insane. We'll just say that for that fact. I know Perez, the lefty guy, he's pitched well this season. Nice to try to not look petrified on the mound. Yeah, you can see it. Trinan has the confidence level back. It's okay to not be a closer. If you're a setup guy, be a setup guy. Be the guy that gets double plays. Some guys are just confident in certain roles, and we talk about roles as being so important for this team. And Blake Trinan at least has found his role. So that's important. Oliver Perez, I think, has his role, but Oliver Perez should be used a little bit more. He's done an excellent job this year, surprisingly. Eddie Romero's been used. You get the sense Dusty's kind of leaning to him being sort of that closer type, but I keep putting closer in air quotes because there is none. There hasn't been one named, and we don't know who that is. And who knows if K-Rod's that answer. K-Rod will be in Syracuse next couple days. We'll try to track that as much as we can. He got knocked out, as John Heyman pointed out today, July 12th. So Syracuse's All-Star break is July 9th. So K-Rod's only going to have about 10 days to show something to the Nationals. So we were a little bit angry about it last night, but looking if it's only 10 days, you're only going to see K-Rod maybe like 5-6 games at Syracuse. So you're only giving him about a 5-game, 6-game tryout, basically. So I think if he's in the Major League bullpen, then I'm going to be concerned. But right now, I think you just got to see what he does in the minors and go from there. Perez has looked better than Romero, as Judo says, my opinion. I would agree. I think Ennie's done much better. And are Taylor and Goodwin better options than Worth, especially with the contract? That's a good question. I think that's going to be revisited in the offseason. Worth's so important and the chemistry related. I think you have to put Jason Worth back in when he comes back, which we learned yesterday. It's probably not till after the All-Star break. And Ron wrote about that earlier today. Goodwin, to me, is a good bench bat to have because he can give you speed and gives you good contact ability, like you saw him drive the runner in from third in the first inning tonight. He does those things well. Taylor is going to be an interesting case because if Michael Taylor continues to play well, you can make the case he should be your left fielder next year with Adam Eaton in center. If Eaton is healthy, which you would think he would be. So that could be interesting, and Worth's still going to want to play. So that the Taylor Worth thing becomes more interesting by the day, especially going into next year. But that's a next year problem. But Judo, I do see where you're going with it, and I think they're going to have a big answer on that one. And Seth, thanks for joining us. We always do appreciate it. Let's take a look around the division, see what's going on. Only one final, and that's the Mets losing to the Marlins 6-3. Robert Gazelman left this game for the Mets with an injury, so more injuries for New York. Marlins scored 3 in the 7th. Ichiro with the game-winning hit in the bottom of the inning. Barraclough got the win, and Neil Ramirez took the loss. So more tough times for the Metropolitans. The other NL East teams are in progress out west. Phillies are in Seattle, no score in the top of the 3rd. Phillies are having Aaron Nola on the mound, and the Braves are in San Diego tonight. Sean Newcomb on the mound, that one of their top pitching prospects. No score on the bottom of the 2nd. Bartolo Colon will be on the mound for Atlanta tomorrow. So Bart's back for the Braves. So that's your Major League update. Let's go around the minors. Auburn was not in action tonight. That's the New York Penn League team. They'll play State College tomorrow. And you can watch Auburn on MILB.tv. You don't get to do that very often. Same with Potomac this week. So if you have it, I'd recommend watching some guys like Victor Robles in Potomac. Harrisburg played a doubleheader tonight against Reading, which is the Phillies AA affiliate. Was a mixed bag of results for the Senators. They won game 1, 4-3. Remember, they played 7-inning doubleheaders. Yadiel Hernandez, a solo shot in the 5th. Senators rallied back to get the win here. Working Estevez gave up 10 hits over 5 innings, but only gave up 3 runs. And Jimmy Cordero, 2 perfect innings in relief to get the win. And in game 2, the Senators lost to Reading by a final of 4-1. So they get the split of the doubleheader. Phillips Valdez took the loss. He's 0-2 with a 3.77 ERA. The lone RBI in this one coming from Jose Marmoleos, who's at 26 RBIs for the year. As Valdo Abreu, 2 for 3 as a starting shortstop. Harrisburg only had 4 hits in this one. Syracuse was in action against Scranton, but that game got suspended in the top of the 2nd due to rain, so they'll pick it up tomorrow. Scranton has a 2-1 lead in that one after a Dustin Fowler home run in the top of the 1st inning against Sean O'Sullivan, but the Chiefs got a run in the bottom of the 1st inning on an RBI by Clint Robinson. Andrew Stevenson continues to have a good swing at the plate. He had a hit in this game. You love the way he's been playing in June after such a rough start to the season, and they need him to sort of keep it going because you never know. Andrew Stevenson can be that guy down the stretch that can play a factor if he continues to hit. That's what everybody thought until he got the slow start at Syracuse, slow start in AAA. So keep an eye on Andrew Stevenson. He's starting to reopen some eyes again. Potomac down in Myrtle Beach lost 4-2. Victor Robles did have a double in this ballgame. Had a nice robbing of a home run in center field. Jack Sundberg and Ian Sagdahl had RBIs. Sagdahl's up to 49 this year. Grant Bourne got the loss, went 6 innings. He gave 3 earned runs and struck out 4. So still not a bad outing for him. His ERA is at 1.95. So it looked pretty good for the Peanuts, but they took the loss in this one. Hagerstown's won 5 in a row, and they're really fun to watch. They beat Delmarva 9-0. Sheldon Noisy, a 2-run shot in the 5th, his 9th of the season. Jake Knoll, a solo homer. And how about Daniel Johnson, what he's been able to do? He was the South Atlantic League Player of the Week this past week. He has had 5 straight multi-hit games, and 3 of those have been 3-hit games. So he's a guy, you don't know what the Nats are seeing, but you're going to look for him to move up, I would think, pretty soon. You look at his June numbers. Coming in tonight, he was hitting .330 in the month of June. So for a guy that didn't have much power at Auburn last year to have 16 home runs in Hagerstown, He's been impressive. And Sterling Sharp, 6 innings, 5 hits, struck out 6 and walked 1. So keep an eye on Johnson along with Robles, because those guys have been really fun to watch in the outfield for the minor league teams. GCL Nats got underway, and why that's important. As we mentioned last night, a lot of the draft picks are there for now, and guy to watch is shortstop Yasel Antuna, who was one of their international signings last year. He went 3 for 5 with a triple today in his first professional game. Israel Pineda, the catcher, went 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs as GCL Nats scored 8 runs at the top of the 9th to beat the GCL Mets 9-7. So let's look at the pitching matchup for tomorrow before we wrap up here. John Lackey will take the mound against Steven Strasburg. You can catch that game at 7:05 p.m. Eastern. It is on MLB Network if you are, I think it's an alternate feed, so maybe, I know Ron won't be able to see, he'll have tape delay. It's on Maston. If you're in Chicago, it's on CS in Chicago. John Lackey gets the ball 5-8 with a 4.74 ERA for the Cubs. And Steven Strasburg, 8-2 with a 3.57 ERA for the Nats. And this is an interesting start for Steven Strasburg, who has not looked that good in 2 of his last 3 outings, had to grind through that Mets start even to get a win at Citi Field. They could use a big game from Strasburg, who does have 35 strikeouts this month, but has an ERA over 5. So they could use one of those starts he had against the Dodgers where he was dominant in that game. He has pitched well against the Cubs in his career, a 1.95 ERA, so you definitely like to see that. And his home numbers, though, are bad. Despite having 52 strikeouts at home, his home numbers are a 4.70 ERA compared to 2.61 on the road. Ron wrote about that a couple of days ago. So they need a big game from Strasburg just to sort of fix this month of June, because you got to win tomorrow. You finish 3-1 in June. Not a bad month from him at all. Some of the numbers for the Cubs to keep an eye on. Anthony Rizzo's got a couple RBIs, but the only ones with home runs are that's active is Tommy LaStella. So again, you got Jason Hayward, who's a 405 hitter against him, but he's on the DL. So Strasburg, just like Scherzer, kind of catches a break there a little bit. John Lackey takes the ball for the Cubs. Lackey, is a grinder, gets through starts, doesn't have the best stuff, but at 38, he's still pitching pretty well. He's given up only 1 run apiece in each of his last 2 starts, but Lackey does give up a lot of homers. He's given up a home run in 8 straight games, and Nats have not hit a home run yet in this series, so they're kind of due for one. So that's going to be something to monitor tomorrow, is what the Nats can do against Lackey, because they don't usually have a lot of success against him, but he's starting to sort of find the groove again. His ERA is barely under 4 this month, so not a bad June for the veteran. Some of the numbers to watch. I'd be interested if Adam Lynn gets a start. Adam Lynn does have 6 doubles and 7 RBIs against Lackey, a 4.19 average. I don't think he will, but that's something to watch. Ryan Zimmerman, 4 for 12 with a couple RBIs, but the only one with a home run besides, Anthony Rendon has 1, but he's 1 for 7. And Murphy's 4 for 12, as he'll try to extend his hit streak to 12 games. Drew sent a comment in here. I think Stevenson could possibly be an excellent trade chip. Also, the emergence of Taylor and Goodwin makes him somewhat expendable. That's a good point, too. Rafael Bautista being out right now plays a factor, I think, as well. But if Stevenson can get you a piece, I think you have to do it, because it really isn't a fit for him if you're gonna keep Victor Robles around, you would think, in the next couple of years. And you have Taylor, you have Goodwin. So maybe Andrew Stevenson's that piece that gets you a reliever that you're looking for. So you hope he plays well for the Nats, but you hope he also plays well in case the team is scouting him over the next few weeks and thinks about acquiring him, because he has definitely overexceeded expectations since the fall league last year. So what do we have up on the website today? We got a lot of stuff up on the website. I went back in time. I've been doing a lot of 10 years later pieces, looking back at the 08 Nats, and I talked about Nick Johnson, who didn't play at many games in 2008. Drew, who's in the chat room, talked about Matt Wieters showing signs of improvement. You also can find last night's DoDcast, which was our celebration of 100 episodes, and we thank you all for tuning into those episodes. We're doing a lot more. And Ron talks about Jason Wirth is slated for a mid-July return, as I talked about earlier. Ron's going to have stuff up for you tomorrow. He's going to be with you for tomorrow night's game. I'll be back with you Thursday afternoon for John Lester against Joe Ross. That should be an interesting game as well. And I think, again, you've got to find a way to get one of those 2 games. Judo says, is Max's ERA under 1 this month or just over? Good question. I will pull that up for you, Judo, while I get that. I don't know if it's updated yet, But what I have here in June, he was at 0.89 before tonight. I'm not sure if that has changed. I'm going to give you a real quick look at MLB.com. They're usually a little bit faster with those updates. So let me take a look and see. But he's been dominant this month. This has been one of the best months I've ever seen from a starting pitcher. And Joe Maddon's going to have a tough decision to make. And he can't go wrong either way. But between Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw, whoever starts the All-Star game, somebody's going to be mad either way. Again, I don't know if it's updated, but 4 starts, 0.89, 45 strikeouts, 6 walks, and a batting average against a 117. My gosh, that's insane. You talk about video game numbers, that's video game numbers. So Scherzer gets to 9-5. He'll have a chance at 10 wins the next couple of starts. He'll actually pitch Sunday night against St. Louis, so that should be a fun outing to see. And I think when you look at this team, they did a nice job playing small ball, stealing bases, working the count, getting the runners over. That's the most important thing. When the home runs aren't working, you go for the small ball, and that wins you games in October. So if the home run's not there, win other ways. That's what this team can do. And Trey Turner, just insane. And give Dusty and Davey Lopes credit for Miguel realizing, hey, Miguel Montero doesn't throw anybody out. Let's steal on him. And they played off. Contreras is going to be really tough. You saw that last night when he picked off Turner at first. Contreras kind of controls that run game. And he's a young catcher, really one of their bright stars in that Cubs lineup. So I don't know if the run game will be as aggressive the next couple of days, but give the Nats credit for figuring that out. And it's so much fun to watch them steal the bases. As I say on Twitter, let the speed games begin. Speed games are fun. FP says offense is cool. I like speed. Speed's cool. And Trey's definitely one of the coolest guys in the league in that category for sure. Go with both Clayton and Max. Joe says into a combined Pat Venditti. I remember I'm in Staten Island, Judo. I watched Pat Venditti when he was at the Yankees. It was always a fun experiment, but that would be interesting. Nevertheless, nationally, he's got the edge pitching-wise in the All-Star game when you could throw those 2 guys out there. And you hope the Nats can get 3 pitchers. We talked about it last night. I don't know if Gio's going to get selected, but maybe somebody backs out and Gio gets an opportunity or something else happens. But Gio deserves it if he can throw 1 or 2 more good ones together. Definitely deserves an opportunity. That'll be interesting. Again, that selection show will be Sunday night on ESPN at 7 o'clock before the Nats-Cardinals game. So you'll see the Nats All-Stars, and then you'll see them play. So that should be a lot of fun Sunday night. I'll be with you for that one Sunday night. So, again, our thanks to Jacob Misener for Cubbies Crib, being a good sport and hopping on here. We always have fun. And, hey, we're 3-0 on guest DoDcast this year. Maybe we should do this more often. But we like to do it for the big series. So we thank you guys for tuning in as always. So from all of us here at District on Deck, Ron will see you tomorrow. I'm Ricky Keeler saying I hope you have a great rest of your night. And enjoy this series. It's a lot of fun. And the Nationals getting the win tonight, 6-1 over the defending champs. Until tomorrow, enjoy the rest of your night and your Wednesday afternoon, everybody.